There you go.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the chapter meeting for the Los Angeles chapter of the Climate Reality Project. And thank you for coming. Thank you for choosing to spend some of your Sunday evening with us. This is the first time we've done two events in one day. So at least since I've been around. And this afternoon, we had a chapter screening of Michael Zelnicker's film, The Issue with Tissue, which is playing at the Laemmle NoHo, which is up in the valley, and it will continue playing for the next few days. And so if you are interested in seeing that film, great discussion of the boreal forest in Canada, as well as the problem with using single virgin use paper for toilet paper, and you know great stuff to take a look at if you're interested and you have time in the next couple of days. You still have an opportunity to see that film. And as with anything, one of the takeaways is that we use a lot of toilet paper in this country, and if at all possible, you should always buy the 100% recycled toilet paper. That's one easy change you can make in your life that doesn't really require you to radically do things differently, but it does matter and it does make an impact. So after starting the evening talking about toilet paper, I will move on to our larger agenda for the evening. So Climate Reality just finished a training in Korea, and they have announced one coming up for West Africa. The exact dates and location have still not been released, but that's what's going to happen on the international front. So I just wanted you to know that the larger parent organization is still very busy spreading the word all over the globe. And there's always more information on those training sessions. And you can register for a future training if you wanted to do one in the States or the next virtual one. You'll be notified them if you go to climaterealityproject.org, and you can sign up for, that's a separate email list from our laclimatereality.org, which is our chapter. So if you're interested in finding out about future trainings, either to tell other people or to maybe possibly be selected for one yourself, that's where you go and sign up for that, and can find out more information about what the international organization is doing. So welcome everybody tonight. I want to tell you about a few things that we have going on in the chapter. We've been very busy the last couple months. As you may recall, our last meeting was a in-person meeting where we did a beach cleanup at Santa Monica Beach, and we shared that event with the Surfrider Foundation down at the Venice Pier, and we were responsible for removing 125 pounds of trash from the beach. And it's important to note that a lot of this stuff is just little bits of plastic. And in particular, one of the things where a lot of us spent all of our time was somebody had done some big party and had chosen to dump lots of plastic glitter and shiny pieces of junk, all over the beach. So all that stuff doesn't weigh very much at all, but lots of us spent a lot of time picking it up. So the 125 pounds, which is cool, it's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the impact that we made and getting all that plastic waste and capturing it and getting some of it out of the ecosystem. So thank you to all of you who attended that. And if you're interested in doing a beach cleanup and you were unable to attend that one, I want to let you know that Coastal Cleanup Day is September 23rd. So that's an international thing. Lots of organizations participate in it. And for our next one, we don't have a specific chapter event planned for it. However, I would encourage you to go to healthebay.org, because Heal the Bay is is involved nationally in several different cleanups for Coastal Cleanup Day. And that's a great way to tie into the fact that our guest this evening is the CEO of Heal the Bay, Tracy Quinn, and we'll be interviewing her starting at 7:30 and talking about all the interesting things that they're involved in. And there'll be time for you guys to ask questions about that as well. Several things we've signed on to in the last month that I want you guys to be aware of. We've signed on with the Wellbeing Economy Alliance in a letter to Governor Newsom, asking that we focus our economy toward making people healthy and happy. And, that's got to be a priority more than money and exploitation of resources. We signed on along with our friends at the San Fernando Valley in a letter supporting the Senate Bill 665, the alternative to single-use plastic. That's just part of our larger agenda of things that we're involved in with our legislative committee that Andrew will probably give us a little bit of update on it. We, at the Biodiversity Committee, we can talk a little bit more about this in the committee report, but we created an initiative to oppose some of the changes that have been made to AB 1573, which is a native plants motion. I'll give you a little more of a taste of that when we talk in committee reports. We also signed on to a letter that was brought to us that went to Councilmember Rahman. So we are involved in local issues as well. And this had to do with the Harvard Westlake proposal that's happening in the Valley and Studio City area. Lastly, Michael's going to probably give us a little bit update, though it's kind of outside the marketing committee, but it is something he brought to us. So I'm going to let Michael talk a little bit about it, but we signed on to an initiative of the Carbon Free Buildings Group, letter to South Coast AQMD to encourage the zero emission appliance rules to go into effect and to be accountable. And I'll let Michael give us a little more information on that when we get to that point. So that's just a taste of some of the things this chapter is doing. The committee level is where so much of our work takes place, and we get into deep dives and heavy into the weeds on things. And so that's my segue to tell you, I'm going to give you a quick update of what the committees are doing. And I'm going to refer to committee chairs here or committee representatives. Please, committee members, keep your reports to just 2 or 3 minutes, because that's all we have really time for. Just give a taste of what's going on, maybe tell us to your next meeting. So I'm going to toss it to my vice chair of the chapter, Andy Atala, who's going to tell us about the water committee and what's going on there.
Thanks, Charles. And I will be brief as promised. So we've signed on to a couple position letters, specifically bills that are water related that require rainwater capture in new buildings, enforcement of water rights, as well as punishing any abuse of water use. And last but not least, drought resistant buildings. So those are the big ones that we've been supportive of. We've, like I said, supported chapter-wide support letters. For those, we've also reached out to the staffers that are heading those bills to ask how we can move them forward. They're the most impactful bills that so far made it through. Again, we won't know what completely makes it through, and Andrew will talk about this until appropriations has made their decision. After that, we'll also focus on general water advocacy and encouraging the state to do more, whether we're in a drought or we have sufficient water, because droughts will reemerge. But if anyone is interested in individual activism, I'll be sure to point that out and how you can be more impactful and activate around water security. So that's all I have. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And back to you, Charles. Thank you.
So next meeting specifically was when?
Oh, say that again.
When's your next meeting?
We have ad hoc meetings, so I will let the team know, and I'll put that on. To be determined.
Got it. All right, I'm going to toss it to Cecile to tell us about our community engagement committee and what's going on there.
Hi, everyone. So the community engagement committee is divided in two. My co-chair is David Merritt, and there's one part who welcomes newcomers, and we help them decide on which committee they would like to join, telling them a little bit more about what you all do. We also have an in-person meeting. The next one will probably in Pasadena at the end of September, but just like Andrew, we're going to keep you posted about this. And the other part of the committee is in relation with other nonprofits like Third Act and the Sierra Club and all of this. But David apologizes because he cannot be here tonight. So I don't have much input to give you right there about that. I'm sorry.
That's all right. You're doing great. We appreciate all the work you're doing. And I know you guys were on a bit of a hiatus as you were traveling and things. So welcome back. I'm going to throw it to Andrew Ellis now to tell us about the Legislative Policy and Policy Committee and also the Climate Business Working Group.
Thanks, Charles. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. My name is Andrew Ellis, and I'm on the chair of the Legislative and Policy Committee. We've been working through the spring with the legislators on the promulgation of their legislation. All through the summer and the fall, we've been writing support letters. Those bills have now survived and been crossed over into either the Assembly or the Senate. We're all waiting now for the appropriations process to take its Byzantine pathway, and then we'll find out September 1st which bills have survived. At that point, the legislative committee will send out urgent action notices to everybody to call their assembly members and California senators in support of the priority legislation that both the LA chapter and the San Fernando Valley chapter is working on. So that's kind of the update. If you want to join the team, where we've got a growing team, there's about 40 in San Fernando and about 20 or 30 in LA chapter. So I'll put my contact information in the chat for everybody. And thanks so much, Charles and Andy, for your leadership and for the opportunity to serve as the legislative coordinator.
Thank you, Andrew. And, you know, the work you're doing is really right at the core mission of what this organization is about. So it's a great way, if you are new to this organization or you haven't spent a lot of time doing advocacy and you're not really sure that you know a lot about the issues that are going on, Andrew's a great guy to get under his wing and have him kind of mentor you along. And he's generally very knowledgeable of this stuff. And more importantly, you kind of can learn by doing a little bit of that work with that committee, the political landscape of climate issues. And it's a great way to discover what's going on in the world of politics. And I encourage everybody who is not dabbled in it to get involved with that at least a little bit and see, you know, what might be your lane that you want to get into. All right, I'm going to go now to our Climate Curricula and Youth Committee, and I see Jeannie's here. She's, I'm going to throw the ball to you.
So hello, everybody. Good to see you all. So I guess a couple of things. Well, as you know, Lucy Garcia has kind of taken a little break, although she's still quite involved. So I've kind of been stepping up a bit to take on more responsibility. And I did ask Charlie Wilkin to be my co-chair, and he agreed. So I was very happy about that. And we are at our last meeting, we're forming a leadership team with, we're trying, asking people to take on certain roles so we can kind of differentiate and kind of be more effective. One of our major targets is the school board and funding for climate literacy because we feel it's not adequate. I have an idea about a project which I might float with you in a second. There's a new staff person in the school district. We met him. We had a meeting with him along with 10 Strands and some representatives from 10 Strands. And his name is Jerry Song. And we had an initial meeting with him, and he is kind of preparing to put out a letter to try to get more climate champions at another 200 schools, which we want it to be all schools, but they're proceeding with that. I just want to mention that I'm part of a climate reality, and not climate reality. It's a climate mentorship program for youth called CYCP. It's put on by Sierra Club, Undaunted, and 10 Strands, and we have about 50 youth from the LA, well, from all over California, and they are working on policy targeting school boards. And so we're going to be working. There are about 6 students from LA, and so they're going to be targeting the LA school board with some policy advocacy. I'm now the natural resources director for the Torrance area League of Women Voters, and we're looking to organize more in the South Bay of Los Angeles because we feel like we need more things going on down here. We have a lot of environmental concerns in the South Bay with the refineries and the oil industry and the Port of Los Angeles and so forth. So that is a new role. And let's see. Oh, I just want to mention there is a youth climate strike at the City Hall in the city of Los Angeles on let's see, September 15th. I know Climate Week is coming up, the 3rd week in September, and the youth climate group is having a strike at City Hall at 12 o'clock. So please join us at the City Hall. I'm going to go myself, hoping to get people to go. And one other thing I just want to mention really quickly is I'm looking at September 15th. Thank you. I'm looking at an idea that I'm floating, which is to fund a locally developed climate curriculum for LA that's more dedicated to LA. And so I'm kind of floating this idea of having that, you know, so that some of the lessons that are taught in Los Angeles are more pertinent to the students here. So that is an idea I'm kind of putting out there. And I think those are the major things. So thank
When's
you.
your next meeting, Judy?
My next meeting is September 9th. So that's the other thing. The curriculum committee, we used to meet every other week, but because of Charlie and I decided September 9th.
It'll be on the website.
It's on the 12th, I think. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong month. Okay. Thank you, Andy. It's on the 9th.
Okay.
Yes, so we're looking to meet once a month, but we're going to have in between meetings as needed, you know, and we're looking to advocate with the school board to a greater extent this year.
Thank you, Jeannie. I appreciate you guys. You're doing great work over there, and I appreciate all the changes that are happening there. I want to give you guys, is there anyone here from the food committee to give a quick update from the food committee? I don't see Jen or Lisa. Anybody who is designated? I guess not. We will move on to the biodiversity committee. Our next meeting is September 17th at 6 p.m. on Zoom. There will be a link in our RSVP that's up at least a week before on the website. And we're involved in several things. We're still heavily involved in the fight against the desire to turn all the schools in the Las Virgenes Unified School District to having artificial turf on all the playing fields for the schools and all the actual outdoor areas. We have had a victory that I want to report to you guys in that. They have put that on hold. It's not a winning the war, but it's winning a battle, right? So in what's going on there, because of the negative feedback from our group and from other people, they have put that on hold, and we are hoping to get that completely canceled. And if you want to hear about that and why, come to our next meeting. The other thing we're heavily involved in is we just put out a big push on AB 1573. AB 1573 is a great idea originally as crafted. It requires in public projects and large commercial projects that are that have non-functional ornamental spaces that they put at least 75% native plants and have certain water use requirements that are very low. Great idea initially. It has been henpecked to death by lobbyists, and unfortunately, that number got reduced to 25%, which maybe we could live with, but that then got changed so there were put in so many exceptions that nobody has to really do anything. And at that point, it kind of becomes a lip service bill. And our concern as a committee and as the overall chapter discussions we had was that you pass something like this, then the politicians and the people think the problem's been dealt with and you haven't dealt with it. And if you want to understand why native plants are important to biodiversity, please come to the next biodiversity committee meeting. We'll talk all about that and what we're doing moving forward on these and other initiatives. Lastly, I'm going to throw to Michael and Ashley for a marketing committee update. We got both of them here, so I'm going to throw to Ashley first this time.
Oh boy. Okay. I'll show my camera. Hello. So I'll keep it brief. We are getting some video together for all of the committee leads to explain what you guys do for your committees and what the achievements have been, so that we can involve our community in all of the committees and not just the chapter events that we do. This is going to engage the community a lot more and hopefully get people wanting to join your committees. So if you want to send out information, I'll put the email in the chat to just send a brief video of yourself, or it could honestly just be a comment and some pictures. So we're really willing to work with whatever you want to send us. Just content is important for us. And if you guys have monthly meetings, as we've been talking about, and you want a certain graphic to be created for those monthly meetings as a committee lead, please reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat. I'll create the graphic and send it to Michael. That's kind of what I've been doing in this role is the graphics for everything. So let me know if you have certain events that you wanted to be added to the calendar and need certain graphics done for that. Let us know. Content.
And next meeting for you guys?
Michael knows that more than I.
Yeah, the next meeting is Wednesday, September 6th at 8 p.m. And you can find that on the calendar on our website. And I encourage everyone to check out our website from time to time. We try to keep it updated. Whatever is new will be on the homepage. And then the calendar, we try to keep that updated. If you have calendar items that you think we should be including and sharing with the community, just submit them through the email on the website. And I wanted to share just a couple brief things. So Charles had mentioned that we signed on to a letter to the AQMD. So that's the Southern California Air Quality Management District. And they're doing a series of policy updates related to appliances and reducing and basically zero emissions of NOx from appliances, which means basically electrification of appliances. And they have a roadmap set out for the next year. What's really exciting about what they're doing is that they are across multiple counties. It's tens of millions of people live in areas affected by them. And so when they put a policy into place, it has a really big impact. And so we're engaging in that process. And right now the letter was really just to encourage them to make sure that they stick to the schedule that they've laid out and they move forward. And then I wanted to share one other update, which was pretty exciting. In Pasadena, we've been supporting a statewide bill to do zero emission school buses. And we wanted the Pasadena School District to endorse this bill. And what ended up happening, working with a few different people, including the Pasadena 100 group locally, there was a resolution that was passed unanimously by the school board to not only endorse this bill, but to transition the entire school vehicle fleet, including school buses, but not just school buses, to electric by the end of 2030. So that was really exciting. And yeah, so I wanted to share that.
You know, every time we do the committee reports, it's easy for us to get upset about the climate news that's happening in the world and the news about all the politicians who still play to some ridiculous base and say that this doesn't exist as a problem. And, you know, it's easy to get really depressed about that. I find the work I do with all of you really life reaffirming and really a positive thing. So thank you to all of you for the work you're doing at the committees. If you're new to our group, we welcome you. Everybody's here because they care. And, you know, that's a really positive thing. And it's a way to pick up our spirits and remember that this is a fight worth fighting. And to be around other people who see that and get that is a really awesome thing. So in a minute, we're going to start our interview. I want to tell you that we are doing a trivia contest again, like we always do for our interviews. So pay attention because there will be a reward for your attention. I gave away a tree a few months ago, and some of you liked that. Some of you are like, well, I don't know a place to put a tree. But I decided, you know, some people thought that was pretty cool. So we're going to do that again. It's a different species of tree. And when we're done with the interview, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the tree that we're giving away this time. And if you're a person like me, who lives in multifamily residential housing, and you maybe don't have a place to put a tree, we have options for you to to donate that tree to put it somewhere. So it still gives you an incentive to win. So you can say, hey, I'm awesome. Look at me. I won the trivia contest tonight. And if you decide to then give away the tree to one of the places where we can donate it, or a place that you choose on your own, that's totally cool as well. So there are options for it. So if you don't have a place to put a tree, don't let that inhibit you from participating in the trivia tonight. And the trivia will be about our interview with Tracy Quinn. And so she just turned on her camera. Everybody welcome Tracy Quinn, who is waving to us. You know, I am so pleased to be able to bring Tracy to you tonight. I had the pleasure of meeting her last year when her organization, Heal the Bay, was doing a tour of Westwood Greenway, which some of you know I'm involved with that organization as well. And it's a cool habitat place and that we've participated with before. And Tracy was super friendly and her group was awesome. And it was really nice to interact with them. And then I went and did some reading about her and I was even much more impressed. And, you know, we at Climate Reality, we're always dealing with building collaborations and finding other organizations. And we encounter a lot of these NGOs, and a lot of the people who are chosen to be the CEOs, the head of NGOs, they are basically people that they chose because they're really good at fundraising, and that's kind of their background. And that's cool, and that's awesome. But it's really nice when an NGO picks somebody who has a science background and really gets why we're doing all this and has something valuable to contribute. That's Tracy Quinn. So she has worked at the Natural Resources Defense Council. She is an engineer by trade and by education, heavily involved in water issues and in designing different reclamation projects and things to do with basically the core issues and getting her hands dirty in the actual work. And Tracy, thank you so much for coming tonight. It's a real pleasure to have you, and we couldn't be more delighted to have you as what we're doing here tonight.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be on this call. It's really exciting to get to meet the group from Climate Reality LA. What you're doing is so important. You know, it really is going to take all of us to make sure that we can adapt to you know, this change in climate that we're seeing, and that, you know, we can fight to make sure that we can stave off the worst of it as long as we can. So it's so exciting to see so many of you show up on a Sunday evening to talk about these important issues. So thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming. And we will have an even larger audience with our recording. So this will go out, and we really appreciate you sharing with us. Tell our members a little bit about Heal the Bay for those who are maybe less familiar with it, and what your kind of core mission is. And I'd also be interested in hearing how you personally see the organization going forward in terms of what it's doing.
Absolutely. So Heal the Bay is an environmental group that's based here in Los Angeles. It's been functioning for about almost 40 years now. And our mission is to protect and restore the coastal waterways and watersheds, and obviously beautiful Santa Monica Bay. And we do that through sort of three core models. One is through science and advocacy. So we have several PhDs and super smart scientists on my staff. And we work to advance policies towards our mission. We also do a community engagement and community science. So we're probably most well known for our beach and neighborhood cleanups. And we also have an MPA Watch program, and we collect a lot of important data through that. And then finally, we work to inspire the next generation that's going to help us to answer these important questions and deal with these incredible issues. And we do that by educating about 10,000 kids a year from the greater LA area. About 70% of them are from Title I schools. Many of them have never been to the beach before. And we do our programming at the aquarium that we run underneath the Santa Monica Pier. To your second question, kind of where do I see Heal the Bay going under my background is in climate adaptation and water policy. So I would love to see Heal the Bay embrace our work around ensuring that we have a safe, reliable, and affordable supply of water for every Angelino. That will be core to our work. We're going to be working under 4 core pillars going forward. So climate adaptation is one of them. The other is public health. Public health is what we were founded on, making sure that no day at the beach should make anyone sick. We'll continue that work, expanding throughout the watershed. Biodiversity, I was really inspired by my meeting with you, Charles, and the work that's being done on the Westwood Greenbelt. And learning a lot more about biodiversity. So, a lot of our biodiversity has focused on banning single-use plastics. We'll be looking to expand that a little bit more. We're doing more and more work around how to incorporate biodiversity into our nature-based solutions. Obviously, it is one of the key benefits of nature-based solutions. So really making sure that those benefits are seen. And then finally, equity and environmental justice. You can't do this work without understanding that low-income communities and communities of color are going to be are already seeing and have already seen the worst of our environmental misdeeds, and that systematic racism and all of those things have played into that. And so working to see how Heal the Bay can play a role both externally in the work that we do, making sure that we're focused on an equitable and just future, and also looking inwards on how can we create a more inclusive organization.
The recent climate models that I've seen for Los Angeles suggest that as climate is changing, Los Angeles in the future is not really destined to have much less rain, but we're going to get around the same amount of rain, but in fewer, more severe events. And at least that's what I've read, and in terms of the studies I've read. And to me, that underscores more than ever the importance of stormwater capture. And especially when we just had this crazy rain that we just had in a time of the year when we never have it, that's on everybody's minds. And I know that's key to work you've done. And for those who don't know, Tracy's also on the board of the Metropolitan Water District. And that's certainly something they talk about and are interested in. So I'm curious of if you could give us some insight in what you see going forward on that issue. And also if you could dovetail that into how does a group like Heal the Bay or a group like Climate Reality, that's an advocacy group, how do we play a role in that when most of those decisions are really just made by government entities that sometimes lack some transparency and sometimes are not up for big votes on the issues and that they're deciding about. So how do we play a role in that? And what do you see as our mission on things along those lines?
Well, it's a really big question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, parse it out if you need to. But yeah.
I'm gonna start by just taking it, up to the 30,000 foot a little bit. And, I'm sure many of you know that Los Angeles gets the majority of its water from outside of its service area. So the Metropolitan Water District is the wholesale water provider for all of Southern California, for the 19 million people who live in Southern California. And Met imports water from the Northern Sierra Nevada and from the Colorado River. In both of these systems, the water is from snowmelt. And what we know from climate change is that much like our rain, the snow that we're going to get is going to be, we may, at least on the Colorado, we may see the same total amount of snow over a 10-year period, but it's going to come in just a few years. And the total amount of snow melt is going to be significantly less. So we've designed this system so that the snow that we get in these beautiful mountain regions melts slowly over the spring, fills up our reservoirs, and then we use it during the summer. That's when our peak water use is, because more than half of our drinking water is going for landscape irrigation, and then 80% of the total water use is going for agricultural use. So those big water uses during the summer. And then, we can use that through the fall, and then we get rains and we get our next set of snow. And that's the kind of the system we've built. But climate change is showing us that the snow is coming earlier, and then it's getting really hot and it's melting so fast that we can't capture it all. It's melting early, so we need to stretch that for a longer period of time. All of that means that we can't rely on this system that we've built. It's no longer makes sense. We need to look at what we have available to us locally. And that's where stormwater capture comes in. I think stormwater capture, for me, there's no silver bullet to, obviously to climate adaptation, but I feel as though stormwater capture is the closest thing that we have. with stormwater capture, we can not only prevent pollution, which is a huge issue, but we can help to ensure we have a more reliable supply. So whether that's capturing that water on a small parcel, keeping that in our own soils, on our own properties, making sure that we don't need as much supplemental irrigation for our landscapes. And hopefully if we have a ton of natives, we don't need a lot of supplemental irrigation at all. It can also provide flood mitigation. So when those rains do come, it kind of helps us to make sure that we're not flooding. It can help to address heat island impact if you're doing it the right way. We're not going to see this extreme heat. Hopefully we have got more trees like you're going to give away today. And I would also just mention for those of you that don't know, the Metropolitan Water District is now offering $100 for tree rebates, $100 per tree if you tear out your lawn and you're going to do a landscape renovation. So share that with all of your friends. This is going to be a game changer for making sure that we can address extreme heat while we're also addressing water reliability. And, you know, really that, you know, there's sort of all of the things that we see that are going to impact Los Angeles can be addressed with, many of the things that we're going to see can be addressed with stormwater capture if we do it right. And then obviously, yeah, if we're planting natives, that we can also increase the biodiversity or help to stave off some of that biodiversity loss that we're experiencing. So stormwater capture can really be this, you know, silver bullet type project if we do it right. And for that, many of you, I'm sure if you've heard Andy Lipkiss speak, he's you know been and I see Melanie Winter on here, and you know, no one knows more than Melanie probably about this stuff. But you know, we get enough rainwater here to be locally reliant if we were to capture it and use it wisely. So you know, we've polluted our groundwater aquifers. And so we haven't been able to capture it and infiltrate it. Now we're cleaning those up. So there is a bright future for our water reliability if we continue on this path and if we do it well. We've passed Measure W, which provides almost $300 million for stormwater capture projects. We've seen that maybe it hasn't been as effective in its startup phase, and now there's this opportunity to pivot to make sure that going forward we're being more thoughtful and strategic about how we're building these projects and really understanding how the cumulative impact these projects can have. But stormwater capture is huge and really needs to be a place where we're investing from, you know, and co-funding from all the different benefits that we're going to see from stormwater capture.
You know, one of the things I've seen some frustration on within the environmentalists, you know, advocates, those of us who are tree huggers and those types, is that a lot of that money tends to go toward giant concrete projects that are about capturing massive things in big, you know, big infrastructure type projects. When, you know, there's an argument to be made that a lot of this stuff would be more effective if we had many curb cuts and, you know, more, you know, swales and things like that, and using more nature-based solutions that necessarily wouldn't have to cost as much as well. We just have to rethink about the way we do planning and changing some codes here and there. And so I'm curious about your perspective on that.
I absolutely think that we need distributed stormwater capture, and that there needs to be funding going towards that. I think you're absolutely right. I know that, you know, my organization and many others have provided feedback on Measure W that, you know, they're missing a huge opportunity by just putting stormwater capture in existing parks, or, you know, looking for those larger projects rather than, you know, trying to increase the green space, trying to, you know, trying to look at how we can address some of the multiple issues that we're going to see with climate change. But absolutely, and I think, you know, Metropolitan Water District is looking at how can they think about stormwater capture. We've done some pilot projects. Obviously, Met has a history of providing a lot of money towards distributive infrastructure, primarily with landscape transformation, but could certainly play a role in getting funding towards those types of distributed infrastructure. But we've really got to figure out how to do that now. And I think Measure W funding should absolutely be going towards those projects.
What do you see the positive role for a group like ours, a group like Heal the Bay, in terms of facilitating these things? How can we collaborate? How can we, what do you foresee as a lane of opportunity that might exist on an issue like this?
Well, I mean, I think just being on the Met board, I'm going to start there. The Metropolitan has a $2 billion budget, their Children Water District. We have committed about $40 million a year towards water efficiency projects. We'll have budget hopefully for stormwater capture, but you know, we don't get a lot of public engagement at our meetings. Sierra Club will show up, and you know, a handful of other folks, but you know, there aren't a lot of people that are showing up and sharing with the board what they would like us to invest in. We're really lucky that we have a general manager who has taken the focus off just, you know, being having the blinders on and focusing on building Delta Conveyance and spending $15 billion to do that, and really thinking about what do we need to do in our own service area? What can we do here to make sure that we are climate resilient, that we have locally, you know, that we have reliable local supplies. And so getting folks to show up and to tell the board that that's where we need to be focusing our time and effort and money is really important. I think when we have, you know, you guys, I heard you speak earlier at the beginning of your meeting about legislation. I mean, those of you that are advocates know that, you know, sometimes it's just a handful of phone calls that can sway someone into taking action or to voting on legislation. So, you know, picking up the phone and calling an office is really important. I would say absolutely continue to engage. So, and I've also found Supervisor Horvath's office to be really open to hearing about how we can change Measure W. And so I would absolutely recommend folks from this group reaching out to Supervisor Horvath or Erin Ordauer, her environmental person, and talking about the need, you know, how do we do this? What does it look like? And I think, I mean, you guys know this, you're experts in this, but the easier you can make it with specific recommendations, this is how you do it, this is who should fund it, this is what the agency that should be in charge, you know, the more likely it's going to have a chance of happening. And so I think that we are really lucky right now to be at a time in LA County between, you know, the supervisor's office with Metropolitan Water District, and having Adele in charge and Adon as our chair, as our board chair. We've never been in a better situation to make change on this larger regional scale than we are right now. We also have unprecedented funds coming from the federal government with the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Plan. Obviously, it's a drop in the bucket for what we need for water infrastructure, but it's still $54 billion coming towards water. So, you know, we need to, a lot of that money is going to be directed towards major recycled water projects, which we need. But I think being able to make the case that it's cost effective to be able to do this distributed infrastructure is going to be really important. There's also some really exciting things happening with debt financing. So this is really wonky, but it's something I'm really excited about right now, which is, you know, a lot of this distributed infrastructure hasn't gotten this, water agencies haven't tried to apply the same funding mechanisms that they do for their big infrastructure projects with debt financing. They haven't sought to use the state revolving fund or, you know, those other things. It's newer that we're thinking about stormwater capture and water efficiency funding this way. And so if we, you know, the studies that are coming out that are looking at using debt financing for these projects are showing it can be incredibly cost effective. You can get a much bigger bang for your buck than you do on the typical gray infrastructure if you invest that same way in nature-based solutions. So I'm really excited, you know, if folks want to learn more about that, Heal the Bay is hosting our One Water Day on September 22nd. There'll be two panels. One of them is the general managers of all of the water, wastewater, flood control, public work agencies in LA County. The other one, I'm going to bring together experts from across the state on financing and how are we going to pay for this and what should we be funding. And so I invite you all to join us on September 22nd if you're interested in learning more about these issues.
Is that something that we could attend virtually, or is it?
It's in person. It is in person. It's on the beach, being true to our brand at Heal the Bay, on September 22nd in the morning.
And anybody can register for that at your website, I assume?
Yes, go to healthebay.org and we have registration, and I can also provide a link to Charles to share.
Cool. That would be awesome. Transition a little bit now, if we could. I would like to, one of the things that's just a huge issue that is historically tied to the mission of Heal the Bay, plastics, microplastics, in our watershed and ultimately in our oceans, and just ultimately ending up in life everywhere. And we don't have a great solution for that. A lot of it requires producer accountability, which is, we can do beach cleanups all day long and they're cool and they're great and they do matter. But unless we change the system, it's kind of like, the doctor that addresses the symptoms and never addresses the disease. And I'm curious what Heal the Bay thinks about moving forward on producer accountability, and how we're going to keep fighting the plastics fight and turn the corner on it.
Yeah, it's a tough issue. You're right. This is not going to be solved with beach cleanups. We're never going to be able to address it. And, as much incredible technology is being invented to try, with the ocean, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm losing the ocean cleanup thing in Playa del Rey, and
yeah, the big
things,
catch machine.
Yeah,
I don't know what it's called either, but it's really cool looking, right? It's like, yeah.
Catching it at the end is not the solution. We have to stop it from the beginning. So it's really, LA City did 3 really great ordinances at the end of last year, banning single-use plastics. The county has a single-use plastics reduction ordinance. Obviously SB 54 passed last year with Senator Allen. We need to stop it where it starts. So, these things are small bites at the apple where we're trying to chip away at the plastic that's entering the system. We really need a wholesale change. I think that's going to come with changing the market. It's going to be market driven to some degree of people not wanting those things, which is challenging because plastics are convenient. But I think we really have to regulate ourselves also out of this problem. We need to stop putting single-use plastics into the market, into the system. So, I wish there was an easy answer, and I wish I'd been working on this longer so that I could share with you a master plan. But I think other than passing legislation that's going to keep single-use plastics out of our environment, out of the market, there's not much that we can do to keep microplastics out of our food and out of our bodies. I'm really excited to see that, that the state now has testing protocols for how we can test for microplastics in water. We're moving forward in that direction so we can kind of get a better grasp on what what we all know the problem to be and to have the data to support it. But moving forward, we just really need to get those plastics out of our system.
Yeah. I threw you a question that I know no one has a magic answer to, but I appreciate that you did your best with it. I want to wrap up here and my end of it and open this up in a few minutes to our audience, because I know there's a lot of people interested in talking with you tonight. But I'd like to just kind of spin a little bit away from the mission just of your organization and ask you a more personal question that I tend to ask the people that I do the interview with. And that is, what is it that you use to keep yourself motivated? Because when we work in this kind of field, it's not a field that's, certainly there are more financially rewarding fields to work in. Certainly there are more higher profile jobs that you could work in. But this is an industry or an area, a group, whatever you want to call it, where we get told no a lot, and we are constantly fighting a battle, and we believe that we're on the right side of things, but the right side of things has much less money backing it up than the wrong side often. And so personally, we as advocates, I feel, always benefit to hear the story of someone who's out there and, neck deep in the battle and still has to find ways to deal with all those no's and continue that battle. So what do you do to keep yourself engaged and to keep a good positive energy going forward in what you do?
Wow, that's That's a great question. I've been doing this work for a really long time now, and it's not easy. There was especially sometimes at NRDC, because we worked on so many issues, and I got to see all of the different, all of the different ills of the world, from my colleagues that working on air quality. I worked on PFAS issues at NRDC, working on toxics and all these that it's certainly a challenge. And I'm really glad that you asked this question. I grew up in Orange County. I grew up in Anaheim, and it wasn't close to the beach, but every once in a while my mom would take me, and it just felt like a really magical place. And, I would dive into the water and pretend to be a gymnast as the waves would flip me over. And, I felt a connection to the ocean and to the water like nothing I'd ever felt. And I wanted to protect that. I wanted to know that that future generations are going to get to experience this magic. And so I would say it's sort of my answer is twofold. One, I always make sure to take time in nature. All of my vacations are usually planned around hikes in beautiful locations, and reminding me why I do the work that I do. And then the second thing is that I believe that we have the solutions, we have the answers to at least make the world a better place for longer. Obviously, we're already seeing horrible impacts of climate change now, but there's still moments of beauty. Most of the moments I think are of beauty. This natural world is incredible. And knowing that I can wake up every morning and do something to preserve this gorgeous planet keeps me hopeful. And getting wins every once in a while also certainly helps.
Absolutely. The occasional win fuels you like nothing else. That's definitely true. So thank you for that. I know we have some people who are interested in asking some questions, so I'm going to open it up at this time. If you could do your little raise your digital hand thing, and we'll get a little queue going. But I'm going to start with Karen because you already submitted some questions to me, and they were very specific, so I didn't incorporate them into my interview. But if you want to ask maybe a question to start us off, Karen.
Yes, I can. Hi, thank you so much for having this. This is wonderful to listen. And yeah, so I'll keep it short, or as short as I can. I'm really interested in what we can do with the water that's being channeled into the ocean so quickly with these the LA riverbeds. And I live near a soft bottom where there's no concrete underneath here in Atwater, but I'm curious if there could be money spent on digging up all these channels so that the water can go into the ground underneath. And then on the next question was, what about installing solar on top? I know that's not a water question, but that seems like a very good place. So that's one question I have. I have a few more.
Sure. Yeah, I think going back to sort of the history of LA and why we have channelized the LA River, and why we've built into the floodplain. Many of you probably know there was a huge flood, and we built up Los Angeles, a huge flood in 1930, and we decided, and I'll take, I'm an engineer, so I'll take some of the hit for it, even though I clearly wasn't around in the 30s. Well, we just got to take this nuisance and get it out as quickly as possible. And we know now that was a huge mistake. So now what we need to do is to undo the past. I think, unchannelizing the river is, I think, what many of us would certainly like to see. But I think that it's a challenge to do that first. I think what we can do more easily is to try to keep some of that water out of the river and allow it to infiltrate in place where it falls as much as possible. So, you know, to the extent that you can, if you have a single family home, or if you own a business, to be able to transform your landscape so that it captures and holds that water, either through rain barrels, but hopefully through sort of dry beds or some other nature-based solutions. I think the key for us is really to try to keep that water out of our storm drain systems as much as possible. And then I think your other question is the solar. You know, it'd be interesting to see if we could do it in LA. We're doing it on some of the metropolitan, on the State Water Project, putting solar in certain areas to offset some of the cost of what it takes to pump that water down here. It's not, you know, it's certainly an interesting idea.
Sorry, to come back to what I meant is not to take out the sides of the channel, but the bottom, just the you know, the one the ground. Is there any plans that this can be done with near Atwater? Trees are growing there.
Yeah, I mean, I know Metabolic Studio is doing some really cool stuff with, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lauren Bond's work at Metabolic Studio. She has excavated about 100 yards of the LA River, and they're doing some work, but that's, you know, that's really, that's a certainly different project. But my understanding is it was pretty challenging to get the permits to be able to do that. I think because of the way in which we've siloed our the different agencies that touch water, and having flood control manage the river is, you know, it just makes it really, really challenging to do something for infiltration when their sole focus and mission is preventing floods. But, you know, doesn't mean we shouldn't try for it.
All right, we're going to move on to Andrew now.
Thanks so much. Tracy, there's a bill moving through Assembly Bill 1407, the ocean protection. We're very concerned at the LA chapter about protecting our coastline from oil and gas exploration. This establishment of Assembly Bill 1407 of the Ocean Protection Council, can you briefly talk a little bit about legislative initiatives from Heal the Bay that we can know about, that we can support you or help you folks push stuff in the legislative area?
Sure. I mean, right now we only have, I believe, one sponsored Heal bill its way through legislation. That's AB 1572. Also from Assemblymember Friedman, I heard you talk about AB 1573 before. 1572 bans the use of drinking water on non-functional turf. So grass that's in front of a McDonald's or in a parkway that's using an incredible amount of water. We definitely could use some help. The misinformation campaign started last week. I'll actually be flying up to Sacramento to lobby on that bill on Tuesday to try to address that. So address those that misinformation campaign. But certainly, if you want to reach out to folks in the Senate, we're on the Senate side, hoping to get out of Senate appropriations. Would be great for some of our senators to hear from you.
Our chapter's already on record as being in support of those legislation.
We recently passed another bill that will change how fisheries are, or it changes fines for fisheries to help them enforce people who are fishing in marine protected areas. So, but that has already been signed by the governor. But I can certainly keep you all in the loop as different legislative things come through. I think that we're expecting more locally some opportunities to weigh in on Measure W, and certainly would love to keep you all in the loop to help you weigh in.
Yeah, please do that. I just want to emphasize that our strength is not organizational, power, because we're an all volunteer organization at the local chapter level. But where we can be useful is as an ally, because we can be very nimble. We don't have to have 2 months worth of meetings before we decide whether or not to take in a position on something. And so if there are things where you need a quick response and you need an extra push, please reach out to us to be a collaborator and a supporter of what you're doing, because I think our missions are wholly compatible generally. So we definitely want to support when we can. Let's move on to Elisa.
Hi there, thank you. Can you guys hear me all right?
We can.
Great. New first time headphones. I have a question regarding what can be done at the local level, or what Heal the Bay or the Met suggests can be done at the local level, whether it be stormwater capture or other environmental projects. Specifically with local government, I know stormwater capture is mainly done through state levels, but if there's anything that can be done at the local level, I'd love to know a model for that, so we could replicate it in smaller cities. I know I just moved to a small city that has a good history of environmental sustainability, especially with their state local government passing bills and creating legislation for it. And so if there's anything I could get involved with in that way, I'd love to be aware of it.
That's great. Yeah, there are a lot of things to help with local water reliability that local cities and local water agencies have a lot of control over. One of them is water efficiency programs. And so using a drop that's saved is the sort of the best drop of investment you can get. So, and water efficiency is the cheapest and fastest way for us to close that gap between supply and demand. So cities and water and incentive programs, making sure that those are well crafted so that everyone can access them. The big problem with rebate and incentive programs for water efficiency is generally only middle class or wealthy people can access them, because you often have to front the cost of whatever you're doing and then wait weeks or sometimes months to get a rebate. Not everyone can do that. What we're advocating for now is for water agencies and cities to do direct install programs where they will pay for everything, come out to a home and change out your toilet or your faucet or your shower, and even your landscape now. So we're continuing to advocate for agencies to think about doing that instead, to make sure that their programs are more equitable. Stormwater is the same way. Stormwater, here a lot in LA County, a lot of the funding is coming from LA County through Measure W, but water agencies are also able to invest in those things as well. What makes it kind of tough for water agencies to invest in stormwater capture is that they're not necessarily seeing the benefit, but stormwater capture could be really interesting if you go to, the agencies that are dealing with extreme heat. I think it's a huge opportunity for money from Parks and Rec to come in to build, Heal the Bay right now is working to build a stormwater park in South Los Angeles, and we're using a lot of Park and Rec money for that. You can bring in pollution prevention money, so money that's being that's set aside for MS4 compliance or other, pollution reduction monies. Finding areas to co-fund, so advocating for that. That all happens at the local level. So bringing together these folks from different entities and making sure that they're working together can make these projects a lot more affordable. I hope that answers your question.
Definitely
Andy,
did.
you're
Thank
up.
you so much.
Thanks. So you did touch on this, and I apologize, but since you are more of an expert than any of us on this call, can you describe what you think would be the most impactful way to actually achieve water security? And you did provide some examples of ways to collaborate, but what do you think is some of the most impactful things that Climate Reality could do to help heal the Bay? And do you have any of your initiatives listed that anyone on this call or others can see, these are things that people could prioritize if they value and have the same values and mission that Heal the Bay have?
Sure. I mean, there's one thing that's going on, right? It's about to kick off on October 4th. The State Water Board is kicking off its water efficiency standards rulemaking. So the state is going to be setting standards for the efficient use of water. And these are going to be used by water agencies to set objectives. There are 3 components to the water efficiency standards. One is indoor water efficiency. That's a number that was set by the legislature. Then there is outdoor water efficiency. And the State Water Board has just released its proposal for that. And then there's a water loss standard, which is how much water are water agencies allowed to lose, what's an efficient loss of water through their distribution system. And so, for those of you that don't know, at any given time, a water agency is losing somewhere between 3 and 25% of the drinking water through leaks and breaks in its system. And so, right, the last component that needs to be established is what is the outdoor water use standard going to be? And we're advocating for the state board to adopt what the staff has proposed, which is a little bit more strict than what their sister agency, the Department of Water Resources, recommended. It's getting some pushback. And so what we're trying to do is to get a broader group of stakeholders, especially if you're involved or if you know people who are involved in landscaping or landscape transformations. We were trying to be able to share with the State Water Board that the standard that's being proposed, which is, this is going to sound really wonky if you're not into irrigation efficiencies, but the standard is 55% of evapotranspiration. So basically, it's enough water to have a landscape that has 25% grass and 75% more native landscape or climate resilient landscape. That's what we think, should be set as the standard, is the minimum. It's getting a lot of pushback. They're saying that it's going to cause urban blight. So we need folks to weigh in to say this is plenty of water for the type of landscapes that we need to have in California. And also, noting that how much water a landscape uses is only one piece of it, that we also need to make sure that we're maintaining healthy soils, that we have, native landscapes that are going to allow for biodiversity. But that this is going to be the piece that really engages the water agencies in how do we transform these landscapes into these nature-based multi-benefit solutions. I think you also had probably another part of that question, but if you can repeat it all.
Oh yeah, no, it was complicated. So that you did highlight one of the things that's most important. I guess in the future, do you or will Heal the Bay have a lot of these things on their website that Climate Reality can point to, or ways that we can say these are effective things that our collaborators or partners recommend to really, again, achieve water security, which is what I keep advocating?
Yeah, so we're in the middle of a strategic planning process right now. And so we're going to be revamping our website. So yes, we will plan to have more things on our website on things that we're working on. And try to stay connected so that, we can call you all in when things are happening.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Charles. And thank you, Tracy.
Absolutely. And I'm going to follow up with you just based on your answer on that, because you're right in my wheelhouse there in terms of stuff I want to help with. So we can talk later about that. But I'll now go to Hannah. You're up.
Okay, so do you know which city in Southern California is the most water efficient?
Oh, right now I don't know. Santa Monica used to do a really good job. Generally, lower income cities are more water efficient. And so, that's, where you can, that's sort of the trend that you can normally look to. Wealthier cities are generally areas that have larger landscapes, and aren't paying super close attention to their water bill. So there's no price incentive for their rates. I will say that the city of Los Angeles right now has some of the best programming for water efficiency. They offer the highest rebates for landscape transformations, and they take advantage of the sort of co-funding programs from Metropolitan Water District better than any other agency in Southern California. But I can help, there's the State Water Resources Control Board publishes water conservation data. The most water agencies have to report it monthly, and you can look up to see how efficient, what sort of the per capita water use is of every water agency in the state. And there's like 483 of them.
Okay, thank you.
That was a fun question. Okay, we've just got a little bit of time left, so I'm going to ask the people asking questions to keep them succinct and tight if you can, to give us a chance to go with a couple more questions. Allison, you have your hand up since you haven't asked a question yet. I'm going to go with you.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thanks for the talk. I had two questions. one question is, I know at least a while back, I'm not sure if they still do, MWG was subsidizing AstroTurf as a turf replacement strategy. And so I wanted to know what your thoughts are on that in terms of water savings versus plastic pollution. Like, you know, what are the trade-offs there? And then also I had a question about native plants, because you know, I agree with you, they're a multi-benefit solution, but at least in my experience, getting them started, maybe even sustaining them just in our heat here does still require water. So I'm just wondering, like, what kind of research have you seen about, you know, about like maybe startup versus long-term savings, and like for people who would like think, okay, well, I could save on my water bill, they still have to have that initial cost up front, or maybe they still have to like install an irrigation system to ensure the sustainability and health of those gardens. So what's your advice on that? So I'm sorry, those are two pretty specific questions, and I'll try to keep it to that since I know we're out of time.
Well, can you remind me what your first question was? I'm sorry.
Pros and cons of AstroTurf and
yes.
MWG subsidy.
I hate fake turf. I would rather see a huge green lawn than fake grass. I've been doing more and more research into fake turf. I really wanted to run legislation this year that would allow cities to ban fake turf, which they you know, are no longer allowed to do since Governor Brown put that prohibition in. And I know Senator Allen had that legislation this year. I haven't seen it recently. I heard it may have changed, but the last time I saw it, it still was allowing cities to ban fake turf, which I'm really excited about. So I don't think that rebates or incentives should be used for fake turf. I'm glad to see that some of the fake turf industry is moving away from PFAS. But I still am concerned about heat island impact from fake turf, what it does to the soil health, obviously that it's made with plastics. I think there are just a number of problems with fake turf that make it problematic. And then to your second question, I'm so sorry, my memory is shot today.
Oh, I was asking about irrigation requirements for native. Like and long term.
General understanding that almost anything that you put, any living plant that you're going to put in, if you, especially, you know, if you're tearing out landscape, is going to require some water to get going, and often is going to require some irrigation to maintain. I think if you're really turbocharged about saving water and you can do this where you live, there's gray water systems you could use, laundry to landscape, to supplement your irrigation. But generally, you know, I think the benefits of having a healthy living landscape and healthy soils, the healthier your soils are, the more water they're going to retain, the less irrigation water you're going to need. So really focusing on maintaining soil health will help to offset your water needs in the future. And I think if you can, if you're familiar with sort of Pamela Bursler and the Green Garden Group and some of their work, yes, composting, all of those things help. I think that they have a lot of great resources on, you know, what does a healthy landscape look like? And how can you have a living landscape that requires less water going forward? And you know, I think the key to it is soil health.
Allison, come to our biodiversity committee. We talk about all this stuff all the time, and we can do deep dives on all those issues. I'm going to do one more question. I appreciate that there's so much interest. That's just an indication how great our guest is this evening, but we do have other stuff. Melanie, if you can make it really quick, you're going to get the last question because everybody else has already asked one. Sorry, Karen and Andy, I appreciate the input.
Thanks. Hey, Tracy.
Hey, Melanie.
So Adele and Metropolitan Water District has for years talked a lot about One Water, and everybody talks about using all the tools in the toolbox. What I don't see is a transparency budget-wise and investment-wise about which tools we're investing in and how much. So you can say we need an all of the above strategy, but that can mean 99 out of $100 goes to one of those tools, and the other dollar is split up between everything else. And I feel like that's really important. Because you can talk about how important stormwater is, but if you're only investing $1.50 in it, it makes it tough to achieve. What do you think the odds are of getting Metropolitan to perhaps create a hierarchy of investments, or at a minimum first step to have some transparency in their budgeting by kind of water solution?
Oh no, I've lost Melanie.
I terrified
Sorry.
you and you turned
No.
your camera off. Cool.
My internet says it's unstable now, so.
Oh, okay.
Turn
And
my-
I'm in the
I'll
dark.
just-
So.
I'll just turn my video off for a second and see if this helps. But
Cool.
I would say, well, the good news is, Melanie, that I am the chair of the One Water Committee, and I now control, my committee does all of the planning for all of the different water supplies. So I think our chances are pretty good that there'll be more transparency going forward. I think you're absolutely right. We can't have an all above the strategy because we don't have enough money to do everything. We need to focus on prioritize on the things that are most important. Met is embarking on a climate adaptation master planning, which is going to help to inform what we invest in. And that's being led by Liz Crossan, who, came from, Liz, Melanie, from the mayor's office and before the Waterkeeper. So we have a really great champion in Liz to lead that work. I think that it's going to, I'm really optimistic about how we can pivot Met towards larger investments in local reliability going forward, because it's going to make sense financially. It's going to make sense from a reliability standpoint. We can't, a business model that relies on selling a product that is diminishing over time is not one that's going to that makes sense for much longer. So Met has to change, and I think that you're going to see a lot more transparency in what we're investing in, and please come to the call in to the meetings and engage and share your thoughts on what you think our committee and Met should be doing.
Yeah, I think you get a lot more participation if people could actually could see very clearly. Like even when you talk about local reliability, that could mean almost all of the money going to reclaimed water.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So people need to be really clear about what we're saying and where the dollars are going, so that they can weigh in on what they think is important and what their feedback is.
That's really good feedback. I will make sure that we are doing a better job of that at Met, and certainly we can bring some of that to my committee.
Thanks.
Thanks, Melanie.
Tracy, I think we've come to that time. Thank you so much for being here this evening, and we just couldn't appreciate more having you here and the insights that you brought to everybody. And we hope that we are able to continue to support your work and collaborate with you and your organization and future organizations. Just really appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And if anyone has any dying questions, Charles can share my email. I just really appreciated the opportunity to chat with you all. You had great questions, and it's really exciting to see such an incredible group of people coming together for this fight. So thank you. Back
at you, kiddo. All right, guys. So yeah, a little bit of applause. Thank you. That's cool. The pantomimed applause. Awesome. All right, guys. So it's that time of the day when we're going to do the trivia to see how much attention you were paying during the interview with Tracy Quinn. So what's at stake tonight for the trivia? What's at stake tonight is a tree giveaway. I'm going to share my screen here and see if I can get this to work. There we go. A Toyon tree. Okay, so this is the Heteromelius arbustifolia. It is the official native plant of Los Angeles. It's something I'm very proud of have been a little bit involved in getting that passed. And this is a small tree. Some would call it a shrub. There's no real definition of what's a shrub, but it's a smaller tree. It likes to multi-trunk. You can prune it below 5 or 6 feet if you want it to look more like a traditional tree like this. That gives you something like this. This one probably can get a little bigger. It can get as tall as 30, 35 feet. Some specimens don't get much taller, about 20 feet. Lovely tree. It is also, the folklore is that this is the namesake of Hollywood. If you think about up by the Hollywood sign, this tree is one of the groves up there. And in the fall around Thanksgiving, it will fill itself with these red berries. And the red berries and the leaves, by the first peoples who were, not the first peoples, a lot of the immigrants who were mostly of European origin made holly berry kind of wreaths using this particular plant. And that's why it was called Hollywood. And then a developer around 1920 set up that area that was Hollywood land, and boom, something that's so tied to the identity of Los Angeles and our history and everything, it actually owes its namesake to this very tree. So that's a pretty cool background for our good old buddy Heteromeles arbudifolia. And this tree will actually quadruple its weight in the fall when it has, in the canopy, when it has all these berries on it, just tens of thousands of berries in some cases. And they're actually edible, though you wouldn't want to eat them right off the tree. You have to process them in a rather elaborate way. But I can tell you all about that if you want it, but we're not going to have time to go into the berries tonight. But that's what the berries look like. Don't taste good off the tree at all, but you can process them and make jellies, jams, put them in pies, do different things with them. Definitely a lot of the native peoples used them as a food source. They're also a food source of this bird, which is a migrating bird called cedar waxwing. You will often get this bird in your yard in groves when it's coming through, and it actually the berries are at the same time that this bird actually does its migration through Los Angeles County. Here's what the bloom looks like, and here's a close-up of the bloom. This is a very drought-tolerant tree. Once you establish it, 3 to 5 years, usually 3 on Toyon, it does not need any supplemental whatsoever. It will work in any place in Southern California. It's a really robust and really hearty tree. Just a great, great choice to use in landscaping that supports biodiversity and is just really a rockin' thing that you can do for your world that you're in. So that is Toyon. And the question for tonight, for those of you who remember how we do the trivia is you type in the answer in the chat window. And the first person who gets the answer correct is the one who's going to win the tree. And you can either meet me at the next in-person event or come up with some other way to hook up with me so you can get the tree. Or like I said earlier, you can donate the tree to something I'm involved in where I'll donate it in your name, or take it and donate it yourself if you want to do it. All right, everybody paying attention, get your keystrokes ready. Get your fingers ready to hit those keystrokes, to make those keystrokes. The question for tonight is, when Tracy was telling us about the water loss that happens in most systems, she said that most municipal water systems experience a loss of up to what percentage? 3 to 25%. Boy, Allison, you nailed it. You were right there. Allison, so this is particularly interesting to me because you asked some questions about natives. And so, boom, we got you a Toyon. You are the winner. Everybody give a pantomimed applause to Allison. Congratulations. So thank you very much for coming tonight. Our next meeting is going to be on September 23rd. September 24th. I wrote down September 23rd for Coastal Cleanup Day. So that's happening, and Heal the Bay is involved with that. So you can volunteer for one of their things on the Heal the Bay side. But our next chapter meeting will be another virtual meeting, and it'll be at 7 p.m. on Sunday, September 24th. We will have another really cool guest, and that is a surprise at this time. So we will not be telling you yet. So you're going to have to pay attention to the newsletter and pay attention to our awesome website. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your commitment. And, keep fighting the good fight, because it's worth fighting, everybody. So we're wrapping up now, and I wish you all a happy evening, and see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy, and everybody.
Hey, Charles, or do you just want to email me about the tree? I think
Yeah. So Allison, you should be able to email me through the website, or not. I can email you directly, or you can email me. Do you want me I'll put my email in the chat right now
Okay, great.
before we go. So